science class. I've got a really fun 3 days planned for you this week, and I was inspired this weekend to create a little mini unit about habitats. And let me tell you a little story about what inspired me to think about habitats this week. So I was sitting in my apartment, this very room, and I heard a knocking sound. Just like that. And at first I thought it was a person knocking on my door, or maybe someone working with a hammer. There's people that live upstairs. I thought it was maybe them. After I kept hearing this for a while, I took a look outside, and I'll bring you outside to see to show you what I'm talking about right now. And as I turned my head to the left, I saw a bird, I think it was a woodpecker, pecking a hole in the side of my house. And the hole was pretty big. And what made me a little nervous about it was that there was a power line really close to the hole too. So we're going to get that fixed out. But this little story inspired me to think about habitats. A habitat is basically the natural environment or home of any plant, animal, or other living organism. An organism is just something that's alive. So what that bird was trying to do was make a new habitat for itself. Probably make a nest in the side of my house. So when you're thinking about habitats, you want to think about what about that habitat helps the animal or person survive. So you want to think about how that habitat helps the animal get food, how it helps shelter the animal, and what other types of life in that environment and that habitat help that animal survive. So when I think about that, in my apartment, I think about my bedroom where I sleep. I think about my fridge and my cabinets where I get food, and my microwave and stove to cook that food. I think about the two housemates that I live with and how we work together cooperatively to make sure that our apartment is a nice place to live. You can also think about your own habitat. So think about where you get food and who makes that food for you. Think about where you go to get clean water in your house. Think about where you get sleep. Think about the other people in your house or your apartment and how you work together to survive. And then maybe think about how where you live shelters you from the cold temperatures outside, or the rain when it rains, or the snow when it snows. Now, an important thing to know about habitats is humans and animals, their habitats usually look pretty different. Most humans live inside, and so they're sheltered from the cold temperatures and the snow and the rain. Animals, on the other hand, tend to live in the harsh conditions outside, and so they need a lot more skills and a lot more techniques for protecting themselves and surviving. Let's take a look outside and see if we can find any animals and take a look at their habitats. It's raining right now, so it might be tough to see animals. But take a look and see what kind of different habitats might exist in these woods. Maybe squirrels hop from tree to tree to find food and protect themselves from other animals. Maybe bugs or smaller organisms live underneath those rocks. And I know that deer, from time to time, will travel in families across this area, usually munching on food from the ground, different kinds of plants. So just in that one scene back there, we saw many potential habitats. But all of those habitats are part of the same larger ecosystem. An ecosystem is basically all of the plants and animals and bugs and microorganisms and bacteria that live in a particular place, and how all of those different organisms interact with one another. An ecosystem contains both living and non-living things. Let's go back outside and see if we can make a list of living and non-living things. So first, let's look for some non-living things. Already, I see some dead leaves here on the ground. Those were living at one point, but now are non-living. Then I see rocks with different things growing on them. I see old, dead branches, but I also see a lot of living things. So even though this rock is technically non-living, if you look really close, there's moss growing on it, which is definitely a living thing. And underneath these dead leaves, there's lots of green, freshly growing things underneath them. Those are living. Then if you look up, most of these trees are alive, even though they don't have their leaves on them yet. Then think about some of the things that we can't see. We hear wind blowing by. Air is a non-living thing that living things use to breathe. We have some standing water here on the ground. That's a non-living thing, but living things use it. And then we have really tiny bugs and many other smaller organisms that we might not even be able to see, but we know they're there. We're going to talk more about them tomorrow. So your assignment for today is pretty simple. Take a look outside, even if it's a look outside your door, or even just take a look out the window. What you want to do is try to find a living thing and observe it for a while. If it's a squirrel, follow it with your eyes. Figure out what it's doing. Is it eating? Is it running away from something? Or is it sleeping? And then think about what that squirrel, or whatever animal you find, what their habitat might be. Then think about the larger ecosystem and how you can have many different habitats in the same ecosystem. And your final task is go hunting for a glass jar. It doesn't have to be fancy. Here's the glass jar that I found. It's made from some kind of old sauce, but I emptied it out, I washed it, or if you have a dishwasher, you can put it in the dishwasher, and I ripped the label off, and now I have a nice big glass jar for the activity you'll be doing tomorrow. So once you have your jar, bring it to class tomorrow because we're going to have an awesome time making our own ecosystems. So that should give you enough to do before tomorrow, and I will see you then. Bye-bye, guys.